name is Meridian Grace, and I'd like to welcome you to our Awakening Health Show. And today, the subject, or the name of our show, is A Stitch in Time Saves Nine. And the reason why we're going to work with this old grandmother's term is because these days we have so many complicating factors that are leading to very serious disease. And I don't want to get into all the dark numbers about the amount of people that we see with Alzheimer's earlier and earlier, even children with dementia type issues and brain fog and learning issues. Kids that can't handle reading more than a page or two in a book before they're done. They can't hold any more information. Or things like gut pain, or lots of sinus infections or rashes. All of these are signs that we can use if we're smart to take a look early on and see if we can get to the root cause of why this rash might be showing up, why we're having brain fog at an early age, why our children are wild, crazy, anxious, and off the wall, if that's happening for your children, or why they're lethargic and can't get off the couch or away from their cell phones or Game Boys. What's going on that we aren't vital, lively, coming up with creative new ideas, have the creativity to keep ourselves occupied and excited about life? So I have recently been listening to a number of webinars and classes and taking courses about really serious diseases. Diseases like Alzheimer's, diseases like Parkinson's, diseases like ALS, and then much more common diseases, but clearly hugely problematic, like diabetes, and the whole family of autoimmune issues, and of course cancer. And these things don't just pop up one day. It's not like you're totally healthy and then the next day you have cancer, or you're totally healthy and the next day you have Alzheimer's. All of these things are a slow progression. And if we can learn to recognize the signs and focus on making substitutions for things that are detrimental to us, for things that are life-giving and real and natural, oftentimes we can turn these problems around and live a much higher quality of life and happiness and joy. So that's what I'd like to look at today, because so many of us have these early signs of Alzheimer's or diabetes or numerous different brain problems. And we have no idea that perhaps having acne is a precursor, a sign that there may be something going on, or having difficulty getting up in the morning before we go to bed, or just before we want to function during the day. We have difficulty, we are not sleeping well. If we have a partner, they might notice that we're snoring or actually having times when we're not catching our breath, sleep apnea. And all of that affects the quality of our lives. So there's some very simple things that make a huge, huge difference. And I'd love for you to perhaps grab a pen and paper and take a look and see if some of these issues are things that are going on for you. And hopefully in the very near future, I'll have a couple of forms up for you to take a look at on our awakeninghealth.com website. You can download them and check for yourself and see if you have some of these things that are actually eating up a lot of our life force. Or, on the other hand, we'll have another page of things that are profoundly supportive to your life force. So the first things are really basic. We need clean air, we need fresh water, and we need to spend time outside. It's really interesting to me that some of the most important things for the quality of our life and our health have been demonized. And one of the biggest ones is the sun. Each one of us, if we can, if our skin will allow, should be outside as long as we can before we burn. And that way we'll be getting the radiation of light and color. We get far infrared light, which we know is profoundly healing. We can get infrared from near infrared light from the sun. We can get ultraviolet light from the sun. All of these things are used to help us heal. And so we get natural radiation from the sun that's profoundly healing for us. And if we have our feet on the ground without rubber soles, so we can use leather shoes or bare feet, we can then get the magnetism from the earth. And there have been some really amazing studies showing how when we have healthy magnetism, insects, I guess they're smarter than we are, when there's healthy magnetism, they will cluster to that area where the healthy magnetism is. So if we have a North Pole and we're in the North Pole area, the ants will run to that North Pole. But if we change it to the South Pole, they'll move away from it as quickly as they can, because that's harmful to them and it will make them tired. But the North Pole will energize them in the right amounts. So we have that already from our Earth. Our bodies are designed from thousands and thousands of years to genetically have mutated and have a DNA that is profoundly supported by the Earth's magnetism itself. And getting our feet onto that beautiful source of healing energy is a great thing. And I discovered that again for myself, because for over 40 years, I've been hearing that from all these different courses that I've taken. And even most recently with the work of Natasha Campbell McBride, where I guess I've been doing her work for about 7 years now. Natasha speaks about for autistic children and for people with schizophrenia and ADD and ADHD and learning disabilities and anxiety and depression, that one of the most important things we can do to help ourselves is to spend time out in the sun every day on the earth. So have the children or babies playing on a blanket and have them crawling around on the earth and getting sunlight with as little clothes on as possible. So, we have the children, the little babies out there running around naked, but for us, we can put on a bathing suit and go outside. And if we have some work to do, perhaps instead of spending all the time that we're doing that work indoors, we can take it outdoors. So these days, I've been doing a lot of my telephone consults outside and in a bathing suit with bare feet. And it really has made a difference for me. A shocking one. In fact, I noticed my blood sugar change 20 points after I started spending all my extra time outside barefoot. So we may find, as Dr. Jack Kruse, a neurosurgeon, has discovered, that one of the most profound things we can do for our healing is to spend time outside with natural radiation. Now, on the other hand, we have unnatural radiation. We have lots of it in our lives now, with cell phones, with computers, with Wi-Fi, with internet. And believe me, as much as I understand how harmful these things are, I also understand how they've made our lives so much easier that it's almost impossible to be without them. But there's certainly times of the day that we can be without them, and that's when we're sleeping. So one of the best things we can do is to remove the harmful effects of the billions of times more microwaves than our human bodies know what to deal with from our Wi-Fis by just disconnecting our modems at night when we go to sleep. And for heaven's sakes, please don't put your cell phone by your head, because there is an enormous amount of all kinds of harmful electricity and Wi-Fi and radio waves and all of the rest of that that are affecting our brains by having a cell phone by our head. So if you need a cell phone to wake you up, if you have a bathroom that's adjacent to your bedroom, put it there. Put it outside your room. Put it on airplane mode so that you're not getting exposed to the enormous amount of harmful radiation that comes from your cell phone. And ideally, if you can find a way to not have your cell phone physically on your body. So many hip problems are happening now because people are wearing their cell phones in their jeans, or they're wearing their cell phones. Women are putting their cell phones in their bras, and increasing breast cancer issues. And the number of children and adults now with brain cancer has risen in almost direct proportion with the amount of cell phone use that we have in this world. We didn't have the levels of brain cancer that we have now before cell phones were happening. So we really want to look at what we can do to get the benefits of these technologies without producing so much harm. And one of the simplest ones is just turn off the Wi-Fi at night. If you can, make sure there's no electrical equipment in your bedroom, no televisions, no computers, radios, alarm clocks, things like that, anything that has a light, and sleep, if you can, in the pitch black darkness, which will support your sweet brain's ability to produce more melatonin so that you can have a wonderful, deep, healing sleep. And sleep is profoundly important for us all because it has so much to do with our body's ability to heal and support itself. At night when we're sleeping, our body produces some hormones that are essential for our energy later in the day when we wake up. But it's also the time when the body will be breaking down toxins, doing tremendous detox work for us, and also supporting us with having a new cellular development, new energy buildup. So it's our time to build and restore and heal. So I've noticed with myself, now that I'm almost 65, that there's a number of things that just aren't working like they used to, and I wanted to do something about it. And to my great joy and surprise, I have been able to affect my quality of life, and I thought I might share some of this with you. One of them is a morning procedure that I do. And I start out with something called niacin. Niacin is different than niacinamide. And you need to understand that if you take niacin, it will bring the blood to the surface and make your skin really red. It can tingle, it can itch, but what it's doing is supporting circulation to a profound level. And there are many ways that we can understand health, but one of the ways of understanding health is that where we have circulation, the tissue can heal itself. Where we don't have circulation, it's blocked and has great difficulty. So when we take niacin, it helps to increase the circulation throughout the body. When I first started taking niacin, I used to have an extreme flush and lots of redness with just 50 milligrams. And over the months that I've been working with niacin these days, in this special way that I'm going to tell you about, I can now take 2,500 milligrams, and that's what it takes to cause a flush. 50 won't do a thing to me, but 2,500 will. And what happens when you take that niacin, in addition to really supporting that redness, is that, and circulation and benefit to the heart and the arteries, particularly to the brain and to our heart, is that it also lyses fat cells, which tend to carry a lot of our toxins. And so if we can lyse those fat cells and then do a few practices at the same time, it can make a huge difference. And one of the things that we do is support the lymphatic system in being more vital. We use the term upregulate. So we can upregulate your lymphatic system by jumping on a trampoline, actually really almost any exercise, walking out in the sunlight. You can take the trampoline outside if you want to and jump on it outside and get some sun while you're all bright red and shiny and getting tons of energy moving through your body. I also really love power plates. They're really effective at supporting the lymphatic system and the circulation and muscle development, and you can exercise on a power plate. There's also, those are great things to do to support the lymphatic system. You can also use herbs and homeopathics, and I use drainage remedies a lot for the lymphatic system. One of them is lymphatique. And then I have lymph drain and just numerous different homeopathic remedies that support the lymphatic system, as well as different substances that you can put on the body, like a cream called lymphogen cream that comes from Belgium that helps to support lymph flow. So for women that are having any issues with hardening of the tissue, any cysts in the breasts or whatever, they can use the lymphogen cream right directly onto their lymph nodes in the armpit area or in between each of the ribs. They're called the intercostal spaces. And putting lymphogen cream there will really help to increase the flow of lymph there as well. But we just want to do things that increase the lymphatic system. We also make sure that we drink plenty of water. And then in another show, I'm going to show you about the use of a coffee enema. And a coffee enema is a wonderful way to support your liver and gallbladder in moving toxins effectively. And if we're going to lyse the fat cells and have more toxins, we want to be able to move the toxins out of the body without getting sick. And by making a healthier liver, we can do that. So people are oftentimes surprised when we talk about a coffee enema helping the liver and the gallbladder. They would typically think that that would just affect the colon. And indeed, it will move the bowels. Another very important part of detoxification, because if your bowels aren't moving, you're going to be doing what we call auto-intoxication. You're going to be causing toxicity in your body. So we need to have at least one bowel movement a day, but 2 or 3 is preferable for many people. We're all a little unique and different that way, but certainly not a bowel movement less than once a day. If you're having bowel movements once every 3 days, that's a serious problem. Once every 2 days, that's a serious problem. Something that we want to really focus on. And if you were going to choose one thing to focus on, it would be looking at what we can do to increase bowel motility. And one of the best places to start, of course, is looking at, what's on the end of your fork. What are we putting into our bodies? What are we eating that might support our bowel movements? And one of them actually is drinking enough water. We want to be drinking at least half of our body weight in water by ounces. So if 200 pounds actually is an ideal weight for you, 100 ounces would be an ideal amount of water for you a day. So if somebody were to weigh 300 or 400 pounds and their ideal weight was 200, we wouldn't say that they have to drink as much as their full body weight, but enough to maintain their healthy body weight, which would be 100 ounces if 200 was their ideal weight. So water's essential, and good fats are profound. And it's another one of those things. We've been told the sun is bad for us when it's one of our primary healers. We've been told that fats are bad for us. And indeed, there are some fats that are bad for us, but those are only the man-made fats. Fats that have been highly processed at extremely high temperatures and have all kinds of additives put into them to make them palatable. But the real fats, like grass-fed butter and homemade or ghee that you buy at the health food store, where the milk solids are removed from the butter and you just have the pure fat from the butter. Or coconut oil has profound benefit for the brain and profound benefit for the gut, and even has some antifungal type qualities for it. So coconut oil is wonderful for this as well. So I tend to also drink a hot tea in the morning that has lots of detoxifying agents in it, like dandelion root. I also use some green tea because it's so helpful for the brain and anti-cancer. And there are specific herbs that are great for all of the different tissues. Are we going to stop? That's okay. So drinking a hot herbal tea while you're in the midst of doing this process with some good fats is also very, very helpful to support the flushing process. And after the flushing has begun and I've done some exercise that supports my lymphatic system for about 15 to 20 minutes, I then will do a coffee enema and slather the body with my body with castor oil and go into a far infrared and near infrared sauna. And during that time, I'm also applying some far infrared light. I'll use an infranasal laser device, which I showed you in a last program that we did. And so while I'm in my far infrared sauna, I'm actually taking some infrared light and directing it right into the brain, because that supports the mitochondria so very much. So that's a big word, mitochondria. But mitochondria are inside every one of our cells. And these little characters are responsible for providing us with all of our energy. So many of us think that our energy is provided to us based on the food that we eat. But our food is actually broken down by all the many microorganisms in our body. And that's called our microbiome, or the microbiota. And those gazillion microorganisms are providing our cells with the nutrition that it needs, so that the mitochondria will have the energy that it needs to support our bodies. It's really our fuel, mitochondria. And the workers that provide that fuel to us by breaking down our food and doing an enormous amount of communication and everything else are our bacteria, fungus, and virus. So we want to be cognizant of that as well, and look at some things that we can do to support all of it. So I just want to tell you that the last part of my morning process, and then I'll mention a little bit to you about some of the foods that might support the microbiota. The last part is getting into the shower and going back and forth between hot and cold water. Now, I do want to tell you that our water in Austin, and you might want to look into the water where you are, in wherever you live, is very high in both chlorine and fluoride. And those are two things that are very, very destructive to the brain cells. So I really highly recommend that you get a shower filter, which will at least take the chlorine out of your water. Look for ways, as I'm still looking for ways, to take the fluoride out of my shower water as well. But make sure that your drinking water has enough of like reverse osmosis system that you put back some minerals into your water with, or something of that nature, so that you're not drinking fluoride, because that's another extremely important part of your detox, is using cleansing water. And these days, we can actually work with frequencies and put frequencies into our water that's pure water to start with, to support our whole healing process. So another part of my process is to make sure that I'm drinking plenty of healing water. So what are a few things that we can do? We can get outside in the sun. We can take our shoes off. We can get into the grass. We can drink great quality water. And if you really want to get crazy because you notice that you're starting to have lots of symptoms, there's that whole morning process that I tend to do. You could do it in the evening or whenever you like, that involves niacin and supporting the lymphatic system with some exercise, getting into the heat. And if you don't have a sauna, all you have to do is go outside these days, and you can sweat like crazy being outside doing your exercise. You'll do two things at once. And if you have access to an infranasal laser, you can get that infranasal laser. And in some of our next shows, we'll talk to you about the foods that you can replace the ones that are harming you with the ones that will be helpful. So thanks so much for watching.